Adam, from a rock journalist perspective, what did you think of the quote unquote grunge craze of the early 90s?
It was weird because I was obviously a fan of the music going, way back to its earliest roots. As I said before, what was weird to me was there was a certain point in the early 90s where Seattle became kind of silly in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. And by that, I mean a tremendous number of people moved there. And I was one of them, to be honest. But people were moving there kind of for the wrong reasons. There were a lot of musicians that were moving there to find their fame or whatever. There were people moving there just because they wanted to be close to the scene that was producing all these bands that they loved. But, when I got there in 1990, you could see, for instance, Pearl Jam's first show at a small, intimate nightclub. And, it was mostly like, it was a lot of you got to know everyone in the scene pretty easily. It was still pretty small at that point. It wasn't like the small scene of the early 80s, but it was still pretty small. Like
Yeah.
you'd go to a show and you'd see all the same people, but then maybe, as it's getting closer to 92 and 93, when all these bands got so big, that's when it kind of got ridiculous. And I think that you started seeing some reaction to that within the scene. The people that had been around for a while were not happy about it. Grunge became a dirty word. No one was really wanting to claim that title. And, I just remember going to one show that Mudhoney played. I think it was a benefit show at the Rock Candy where they were playing and there was just like a nonstop procession of people stage diving to the point where I think the band kind of just stopped or maybe everyone but Dan stopped playing and then people just kept stage diving. And at that point I just remember thinking I gotta leave. This has just
Right.
kind of gotten stupid. Also, I should note that part of what made it Seattle so exciting and great wasn't just the fact that it was intimate, but it's what the bands were doing at that time. And so, things change. Bands put out records, they get bigger, a lot changed, bands sound changes, all these things change. So the music that was coming out in 1993 whatever wasn't like the music that was coming out in 86, 87, 88. It had
Yeah.
changed and it was just a different musical scene in a lot of ways. And so it wasn't so much just the fact that it had kind of gotten overrun with silly business. It was just like the music was different. Everything about it was different. Seattle was changing. Seattle was becoming this different city that looked nothing like Seattle in the 80s.